All right, so for the remainder of the time that we have together, we are going to talk about, ultimately, we are going to talk about action scripts. But before we can truly work with action scripts, we do need to know how to download and install brushes, because most of the action scripts are going to require us to download and install brushes. So you're probably saying, what the heck is an action script? Honestly, I knew that action scripts existed, but until this school year, I never actually started experimenting with action scripts. And I think they're pretty wild, to be honest with you, pretty amazing. I think if I pull this up, I can show you an example of where an action script was used. And I can show you a couple different ways that the same action script was used. So this image right here, this was a still photograph that an action script was run on. So essentially, this design in the background and the kind of the cutout of the picture was done via action script. And obviously you can tweak the action scripts as well. So then I went in and I kind of experimented and I kept the backgrounds, but I made it black and white and then kept the action script. So the action script is this kind of splash watercolor brush, is the action script. So this image or the prior image that I had shown you, if I ask you to recreate that in Photoshop, what's your kind of initial thought?
Probably very hard.
Right. And especially if I said, okay, now, so honestly, I learned about this particular action script because it's something that we're possibly going to use in next year's yearbook. So it's going to have to be done on multiple pages by multiple students, and we want it to all match. So now, let's up the ante. I want you guys to recreate this picture, and yours should closely match mine. Now, is that sounding even a little more challenging? Yeah, now, the crazy thing is, you can write action scripts, or you can just utilize action scripts. And in this next couple days, we are just going to utilize action scripts, but again, they will require us to turn on and install certain brushes. So I would like you to do a Google search with me for Photoshop brushes and find a site that says free Photoshop brush download. So this one is My Photoshop Brushes. So, I mean, how crazy is this? There's one that is geometric animals. There's ones that are grass. There's a brush that is houseplants. There are glitter brushes. Oh, my favorite, some broccoli. Some flower brushes. Oh my goodness, there's dinosaurs. A bike. So sometimes the brushes will be more of what we consider a brush, and sometimes they will be more of what we would maybe think of as a picture. Here's one that's just abstract brushes, but it looks like there's some lightning in it. Like, I think this is cool, but if somebody asked me to recreate that on Photoshop, or this is pretty awesome looking. I wouldn't necessarily know how to do it. So these are the different brushes that come in there. So I'm going to see where I download this. Right here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to download this one. So I'm going to pause for a second and I'm going to ask you to find a brush that you want to download, and you're going to hit download. And then once everybody has something downloaded, we'll continue from there. All right, so once you have that brush downloaded, I'm going to go into my downloads. So this is where I'm going to see the brush. I am going to copy this file. And the reason I'm going to copy this file is because I'm going to move it into a file that I can separate out more. So my downloads have a lot going in to them already. But what happens is when we extract a file, if I were to re-extract this in my downloads, and there are portions of this file that were actually created years ago, they'll be in the bottom of my downloads, and I think they're hard to find. So I actually have a folder in my documents for brushes, and I usually make a new folder when I download brushes. So these brushes were called abstract brushes. So I am going to take this new folder and just call it abstract. And inside of there, I am going to paste my folder. And then what you need to do on that folder, and Zoe, it'll be a little different on a Mac. You'll probably double click. But Danny, you will need to extract files. And I'm going to choose extract here. So it's extracting it right here. So here are these brushes. So it's an ABR file. An ABR file. And I double clicked on it and it took me to Photoshop. It may have already loaded my brushes, and this is the same concept in Photopea. But I'm going to go to Window Brushes. And it did. When I double clicked, it went ahead and loaded those brushes. So right here are those brushes. If it would not have loaded those brushes, I could have went to my three little lines and I could have chose, I should see an install brush here. Import brushes. Import brushes. And from the import brushes, and Zoe, this is probably what you'll need to do. From the import brushes, you can import what you have going on. So then what you want to do is you just want to go ahead and make a new document. And the size is immaterial, but you're making a new document. And you are going to go to your brush, and you are going to pick one of these new brushes. Ooh. That is very crazy looking. Holy moly, that was with one click. Yeah, I'll be right back to help you. So you can see these are the new brushes that I just downloaded. So like one little click, and this is kind of the effect that I got. So in a second, after you've had a chance just to kind of click around and see what your new brush looks like, we are going to take a look at your brush settings. So just going to add a note, those of you that are working on this in Photopea, when you're on your brush tool, you'll come up to this drop-down menu. And when you click, it's not exactly right here, it's closer down here, and you have an option to import brushes. So this is where you can import your brushes to, and this is if you're working in Photopea. And then you will see your new brushes over here. So these are the brushes that I'm working with right now. All right, so now that we've got a little bit of a handle on, I'll say, installing the brush and at least changing the color maybe and clicking with it, I want to take a look at the brush settings. So before I do that, I'm going to take the brush that I'm on right now and I'm going to click and drag with it. And you can see the look that I just got. This was a single click, this was a click and drag. When you go to your brush settings, you have multiple items that you can change. So you can change, obviously, the type of brush, but you can change, so like the shape dynamics are pretty cool. So if I want it to change size a little bit while I'm dragging it, and I want the angle to change a little bit, so now watch when I drag, the difference that you're going to see. Let me go back to the brush that I did have. Yeah, so I'm going to change the size and the angle. So now when I drag these moons, they are going to look more random like this. So look at my screen a second, guys. Do you see the difference? Where before, my shape dynamics, the size was on 0 and the angle was in 0. So you can even see it changing down here. But it's awesome when you start changing the scattering and the color dynamics. So you can actually change it. So I'm going to change the saturation and the brightness. And I'm going to go ahead and pick a different color so you can see it on top of the green. I'm going to pick this purple, but you're going to see the color of the brush even change as I move it. Now I should have seen more of a change there. Oh, maybe it's because I have my secondary color set as white. So you do want to look at both your foreground color and your background color. So I'm going to set one at yellow and one at this magenta color. When I click and drag, I should see it changing. Maybe I'm in the wrong setting. I don't have these settings memorized. Maybe it was under dual brush. I thought it was under scattering. Maybe it's under the scatter. But I am not specific that I want you to understand what every setting does at this point. I want you to understand that there's settings that you can change. So for today's lesson, you were truly installing brushes, experimenting with those brushes, experimenting with your brush settings, and taking a screenshot of whatever it is that you create. It does not necessarily have to be something beautiful. It is with whatever you create, and you are then going to be putting a screenshot of that in your Photopea brushes and action scripts, and that is going to be located under week 19, because we are going to finish this next week. Does everybody see where they're putting the screenshot? You're going to be putting the screenshot here. Okay. Good luck. We will experiment and play in class. Those of you at home, experiment and play with these settings, please.